Hi everyone, welcome to Things Lucy Reads. I'm Luce and this is a wrap-up video. Okay, so this is going to be a 4-book wrap-up. I'm going to be talking about books 29, 30, 33 and 34. So number 29 is The Science of Kissing, What Our Lips Are Telling Us by Cheryl Kirschenbaum, which is a non-fiction book. I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. It was really, really interesting. In this book, the author examines why we kiss, like what purpose it serves within our relationships, and in part what it does to our bodies, what happens in our brains while we're kissing, and just the reason that we do this at all, and kind of compares it to kissing-like behaviors that are found in other species, and suggests that it might have an evolutionary purpose, and we use it as a way to subconsciously judge our partners on the basis of their genetic compatibility or whatever. And it was just really, really fascinating to read. It's the first book of its kind, so there's not a lot of science to go on, so it's by no means definitive, but it's a very thought-provoking subject, and now it's something that I think about all the time, when previously it's not something that I really thought about much at all. I definitely recommend picking this up if you can. It doesn't only talk about straight couples, it does mention queer couples as well, although there is not quite as much about those as it is predominantly focused on straight couples, because it's looking at their evolutionary purpose and reasons like that. The other thing is that it doesn't really talk about trans people much at all. It very much sticks to the gender binary, but not to purposely erase trans people from the science, just that it is very concerned with whether a person's body is dominated by estrogen or testosterone, and the differences that makes in the body's reaction to kissing. So I personally would be interested in a book like this that focused solely on queer people, and to see if that reactions are the same as they are in straight people, but I don't know if any currently exists, so I'll just probably have to wait a few years for that. But this was very, very good, and I definitely really enjoyed reading it, and like I said, I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. Okay, the next book that I read is Secret Invasion, Runaways and Young Avengers by Christopher Yost and Takeshi Miyazawa. I also gave this one 4 out of 5 stars. I sat down to read a couple of pages, and then half an hour later I had read the whole thing. I've fallen back into that trap of wrapping things up far too long after I've read them, and I don't really remember what this is about. Probably something to do with Teddy being a prince and, you know, half one species and half another species, and they're at war with each other, and they always fight over him and try and kill him and stuff. Something like that. The only thing that I can really remember about this is that there is a character called Xavin, or Xavin, however you pronounce that. They are an alien, and in their alien form they are male, but they are betrothed to this human girl, and she's a lesbian. So Xavin takes on human form, but like a female human form, which is really, really interesting. And I'm now really tempted to just read the entire Runaways back catalogue to find out more about this character, because that's fascinating, and I wish it had kind of gone more into that. I'd like to know if it, you know, affects them at all. Like, did they feel dysphoria or anything like that? I'd really like to know that. Yeah, when I was reading it, I was confused about a couple of things, but as always, it's got like big character profiles in the back that kind of fills in all the gaps in the knowledge that you need for the plot of the current book. So yeah, I really like this series in general. I have no complaints about it. I'm gonna have to reread these all like in order and do a proper review of the whole series, because every time I talk about it, it's just like, well, I read this too long ago and now I don't remember. But yeah, but it was good and I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. The next book I want to talk about is The Wicked and the Divine Volume 3 by Kieran Gillen and Jamie McKelvey, which I read because it was available on NetGalley. I won't talk about this very much because A, it's volume 3 of a series, and B, I have put a review on Goodreads for it, so I will link that down below. I gave this volume 4 out of 5 stars. I really, really liked it. It's just that it was a little more like linear than the other volumes. More things made sense and it was more explanations than it was new mysteries, which is definitely not a bad thing. But with the other 2 volumes, I just kind of like finished them and sat there breathless, and then I didn't feel that with volume 3, so I gave it 4 out of 5 instead of 5 out of 5. But I just really, really love that series. If you it's got really great representation in terms of race and sexuality and gender, and it uses like a lot of mythologies. It's not just the ones that get used all the time. It brings in a lot of different things. Something that I really liked was that in this volume we finally got to meet Tara. Fucking Tara. It's been a joke throughout the whole series and we finally get to meet her. So that was really good. Yeah, I just think this series is really, really fantastic and I would definitely recommend it to anyone looking for something a little bit, you know, something that's going to make them think quite a lot when they read it. So yeah. And then the last book I'm going to talk about is an audiobook, and that is Hamlet, Prince of Denmark by AJ Hartley and David Hewson, read by Richard Armitage. I have been reading this book since 2013. I've specifically made an Audible account to download that book because it was narrated by Richard Armitage, and I've been listening to it on and off, mostly off, ever since then. And God, I'm so, so glad to finally be finished with it. It kind of got to a point where I was just like, no, I'm gonna like put this on 1.5 speed and then just sit down and color in some pages in my Star Wars coloring book and get it over and done with. And so I did that. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. It's 3 stars for the story itself, which is somewhere between a retelling and a novelization of the play Hamlet by William Shakespeare. It not only retells it but also fills in the gaps that the play has. Things like Gertrude and Claudius's relationship and Ophelia's drowning, and Hamlet not killing Claudius when he's praying are kind of examined in more detail and given a better explanation than they get in the play. Things that don't get any explanation at all in the play are given explanations. So that was really, really good. And I would definitely recommend it, but I only gave it 3 out of 5 stars because I've studied Hamlet 3 times, twice in high school and once in university, and I just, by this point, I know it so well that even the things that the 2 authors added into the story didn't make it new and exciting enough for me to want to keep listening. I mean, I did want to keep listening, but I wasn't desperate to pick it back up. So that's why I only gave it 3 stars, and then I tacked on an extra star for the narration because I really think that if I had been reading this book as opposed to listening to it, I think I would have taken longer, because listening to Richard Armitage read a story to me is a very, very big incentive to listen to it, and even that wasn't enough really to make me, you know, listen to it all the time. It's not even a particularly long audiobook, it's only 9 hours, but it just took me over a year to finally get through it. And so I'm now finally done with it and it feels so good. But I mean, despite all that I've said, I would definitely recommend it if you have any interest at all in the play Hamlet. Definitely pick it up because it is a really, really good adaptation / retelling / novelization, whatever you want to call it, of the play. And it has an afterword in the back by the 2 authors, and they kind of talk a little bit about the history of the play itself and the historical context of it, and how their novel relates to that. So that was really good as well. And I do definitely recommend it, even though I only gave it 3 stars, because it's definitely worthwhile. I just was a little bit bored by the end of it because yeah, there was a lot that wasn't new to me. Okay, so those are all the books I'm going to talk about in this wrap up, and I will see you in my next one. Bye, everyone.